that's out from movement. Yeah, you're great. Almost all the major cities in Ohio has non-discrimination laws. Have they seen it? Well, Ohio got 100% almost to the city. I know. And I don't even want to compete with them. I just want to be. We're doing best in California. Let's see what happened in Mississippi. It seems like all zero. We got, let's see, we got 0 to 65. This is federal government. Ohio is one of the best states to live in.
Whenever she's ready.
Yes, sit over here. Yep, that's perfect.
2, what's the date? 10/23, 10/22. Not interrupt my wife.
I'm supposed to use alternative methods.
Madam Chair, whenever you're ready.
I'd like to call the Rules Committee to order. Everyone is present. Everyone here is present. Everyone is present except for Councilman Freeman. So do I have an approval on the minutes from our last meeting? I have a Councilman Hoke approved and Councilman Fusco second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none, the minutes pass. We have before us our new piece is a resolution expressing support for alternative pathways to graduation in Ohio, urging the Ohio General Assembly to extend alternative pathways to graduates to the class of 2019 and beyond, declaring an emergency. And I have asked if we would be so kind as to have a speaker, a very honorable speaker, come to us today. And so Tavia Kolansky, who is our state rep, would like to speak on this resolution. So Tavia, the floor is all yours.
Thank you. Can you all hear me? Okay, good. Thank you very much for having me. I don't want to make this complicated, but I do need to take you back to April of this year. I was minding my own business on Twitter when I was contacted by a group of teachers in Ohio who actually are not constituents of mine. And they said to me, hey, you guys need to do something in the legislature because next year's seniors will not be on track to graduate if you don't extend the pathways that were currently in place at that time, April last year. Kids who were Thank you. I apologize. Thank you. So anyway, the teachers contacted me and said, you've got to do something at the legislature. They knew that I sat on the education committee, and they hadn't had any movement on this issue from the other members of the committee. So they said to me, you need to do something to extend the pathways, the alternative pathways for graduation into next school year that we're currently in right now. Now remember, this was April. And I said to them, I don't know very much about how to do that because I don't know what you're talking about. And they said to me, well, we'll draft the bill for you. So they helped us draft the bill, and literally 2 days later, I filed it. So right now, House Bill 630 is ready to do what the teachers asked for, which is simply to extend the alternative pathways to graduation for this current school year. You might remember about 5 years ago, I think it was, our public school students were required to have 21 points in order to graduate. And then they changed it, the legislature did, to 18 points to graduate. Immediately, they heard from teachers, counselors, students, and parents that structure, if you will, that set of 18 points, was too difficult of a bar to put in place and to just ask our kids to do it, all right? So these alternative pathways were offered as a way to say, even if a graduate can't pass a certain test at a certain number, let's call it the ACT, then they should still be able to graduate. This included kids who were in College Credit Plus, kids who had straight A's, kids who attended school every day, without missing, kids who might be like in an apprenticeship program, so some certificate programs included, like children getting STNAs, so to be a nurse, and some other certificate programs. So the legislature, way before I was there, came up with those alternative pathways, and it's really like a long list, maybe 13. And they decided that, because why shouldn't our kids graduate? They should not be held to having one test make all 13 years of school make the difference of wiping that out or not having it. So I hope you're clear on that. I had a nice lady say to me at Springfield High School last week, how did we get here? Why is this happening now, and why didn't we know about it? And I just was very honest, and I said, in April, I didn't know about it. Apparently, the state school board in January passed their own resolution to say the legislature needs to do this, and they need to hurry and do it before our kids go to school this school year that we're in, right? Well, remember, we had a speaker resign. We had a lot of stuff going on down at the legislature. And even though I filed that bill in May, and we were in session for another month and a half, that bill didn't get any hearings. So here we are this school year in this current situation. So students have started to contact me this school year.
Conservatively, in the last 10 days, I've been to 7 different meetings about this with kids who are seniors saying to me, I make straight A's, I'm in CCP, College Credit Plus, I'm passing my college courses, but I will not have a high school diploma in May 2019. What you need to realize is there are some children who work themselves off of an IEP, and because of the current situation, even though they did all that work to get off of an individualized education plan, they will not graduate in May of 2019. If we do nothing today, conservatively, 30% of our current high schoolers who otherwise would graduate and would have graduated last year are not going to graduate this year. In May of 2019, they're not going to. An IT person at Akron Public Schools contacted me just three days ago, 4, it's all blurring now, I apologize, and said that 100 children in each of the Akron public high schools are on schedule not to graduate. Coventry local schools contacted me and said 69 of their children will not be graduating this year if we do nothing. So what's the pushback on the other side? The other side has said simply, well, you know, these kids need to buck up. Well, there's no bucking up, because you're talking about a test that someone failed 3 years ago in a subject that they haven't been studying for 3 years. So they keep taking these tests over and over again, and it's just making them more anxious. I had a young lady contact me to say she has all of her counseling appointments listed where she's been going to counseling for anxiety about test. She's not going to pass this test. In December, these kids have another option to pass the test, but again, they haven't passed them already, and all they're getting is more anxious. I think I've told you the crucial points about this. I'm just asking you to help me shed light on this. This wasn't my idea either. Actually, some place called Poland in Ohio and Paulding County, Tuscarawas, Mahoning County, those people contacted me and said to me, you need to try to get your school boards and, you know, locally on board to do this, because that's what they're doing to try to tell the legislature they need to do something. We're not in session right now. We won't be in session until November 14th, and this isn't one of the things that anybody's got on their horizon. Thank you so much for letting me talk that whole long conversation, and I invite any questions.
Thank you, Tavia, so much. I'm sure there are going to be some questions and some concerns. So for the members of the committee, may I ask Councilman Fusco and then Councilwoman Amobian.
I just wasn't sure, or maybe I misheard or something, the reason why they're not addressing this? It just...
Okay, so if you can imagine 2 years ago, this legislature did address this.
Right,
And
yeah,
for
for
whatever
1 year.
reason, right.
For 1 year.
They put it in place for 1 year, and what they kept saying, which is true, behind the scenes, they're going to be working on it, and they have been. The school board, the state school board, met last week. Today is Monday? Okay, so they met Tuesday. And if you look in the weeds, they passed a resolution that said, we're not going to do that big work of changing that graduation requirements permanently, so the legislature needs to do something temporary. So do you see how they did something for last year, but they really were hoping that that big macro change, which is a better change, I'm not an educator, so sorry, I'm
Yeah,
not
you're
making
talking
it
about
clear.
the state school board,
Exactly.
though. They're the ones who are diving into this. It just seems egregious.
Yes, but they don't
that-
have the authority, if that makes sense. They don't have the authority, they don't make the laws.
Right, yeah, yeah. It
Exactly.
just seems-
I hope that answers your question.
It does indeed.
Yes.
Absolutely, it does. And I know Akron Public Schools, they intend on passing a similar piece, from what I understand.
Exactly.
As well, which is Akron APS, which is
Right.
great.
The school board's working on it.
I don't understand why they would kick the can on something like this. It just doesn't make sense. And I applaud your efforts in terms of moving this forward, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing that.
And I guess all we can do is thank social media, because these teachers were so desperate that they could see, well, here's this legislator who's active on Twitter. Maybe we'll see if she'll answer. And I was like, sure, if I can help, I'd be happy to help. And then here we are.
There's certainly, obviously, a sense of urgency that needs to be included, so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Amobian.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
It appears that the way this is written, I think this is reflective of your bill, is that this will address 2019 as well as beyond, so they don't have to do this every year.
That's my thinking, and that is exactly, just so you know, I drafted House Bill 630 when the teachers told me to act, which was, remember, April, filed it in May, and it said what they told me to write, which was this current school year. 5 days ago, I had my aide draft an additional bill that said, you know, just until you do something else. So I've got it, I'm ready for them both ways.
Okay. Councilwoman Sims and I were in attendance at Councilman Milkovich's ward meeting when we heard the state representative talk about this issue. I know for years we have been struggling with how do you evaluate a student's performance at the level of graduation. Instead of using, you know, they've used all kinds of different testing instruments, and everybody doesn't test well. And I think the concern, one of the concerns we were just discussing, is that we're not interested in anybody watering down anything. It's basically to test kids and evaluate their performance and their skills level to see, are they ready to go to the next level? And I think that's what we're talking about here, because, you know, I don't know, I can't tell you what my ACT score was, and I don't think I would be brave enough to repeat it. But it didn't reflect my ability to go to college and do good college work. And you have a lot of students who perform well in a lot of different areas, but if they can't do a certain range or a score on a test, it will keep them from going to the next level. And this is absolutely ridiculous. And that's why not only do you have to have different tests, you should have different ways of testing kids to see if they're ready to go to different level of education, you know, from high school to college or career ed or whatever they want to do. So we thank you for this and really applaud, and I certainly thank my colleague for putting this together, because I think we certainly would like to support it. It makes sense.
Thank you very kindly. And again, if anyone is sitting there concerned, you know, what's Tavia bringing this forward about? I did it, again, because the teachers told me to do it, and they told me how to do it, and I just did it. After I did it, so that was May, right? Just last week, the state school board itself, and also the Ohio 8 Coalition, which is the compact of the largest 8 school districts, put in exactly the same language. They don't reference my bill, but they say simply, the state legislature needs to extend the alternative pathways. So this isn't actually about me at all. It just needs to get done. It's a bipartisan issue, nonpartisan issue. We should have done this, we didn't do it, and now, I mean, we're gonna need somebody to kind of push the legislature, and I would appreciate your help on that. Thank you.
It's certainly about you championing the work.
Oh, well, thanks.
Yeah. So you need
Sure.
to take credit for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Hoke?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Tavia, thank you very much for bringing us into light earlier in the year, and it's kind of disheartening that it took this long for it to, you know, come, you know, to our desk here and for us to look at. I was looking at over the weekend, looking at you know, what the legislation was, and I was you know, talking to my wife about alternative pathways, and she said, "What is that?" And I said, "I have no idea." You know, so I started you know, looking and researching, found you know, what was on there from the legislature, you know, and what it's about, and you know, after reading what you submitted and what you have here and what's in this resolution, you know, it all comes together and makes sense. We need to get our kids through, and you know, some kids can't do that well on a test, but they can do well otherwise, and that gives them that opportunity. It doesn't make it to where it's a free pass. I mean, there's still qualifications that they have to get to and they have to meet. You talked about Springfield. There was some, my wife showed me a posting on Facebook from some Springfield teachers that pretty much put it out there and said, hey, you need to get a hold of these people down at the state and get this, pushed through, because they're saying basically that they have 30% of the seniors in their school are not going to graduate unless something happens, and they do have an alternative. If they have an opportunity to get those kids through and get them a graduation diploma and they meet all of those other requirements, it does nothing but make sense for the whole process. I don't know. I thank you for bringing it into the legislation, and for this, and thank everybody for bringing it into council chambers so that we can maybe send our voice down there in some manner, and if we all get our voices together, and maybe it'll hit the right ear. And we thank you for coming out today and explaining this to us, and we'll do our part and see what we can do, and hopefully it'll come about. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you all.
Councilman Hoke. I also want to say thank you as a former educator. I don't know if we ever die, to be perfectly honest with you, but it concerns me that the House blocked it from being heard. That's, I think anyone who knows anything, especially about our Akron Public School system, how we're going to career academies to give our kids every opportunity we can to see them be successful. It isn't about pass and failure, it's about success. And I do have an email that was shared with me that said who we could write to. If you would be so kind, do you happen to know also who we could write to? That if you could send that to me, I will send it out to all my council members, because what we do here in a few minutes may have an impact, and let's hope it has a huge impact. However,
I agree completely. And yes, not even me, once again, still not me, one of the teachers at Springfield put together an entire list of all the phone numbers, emails, and everyone who could have the ability to move this forward in both the House and the Senate. And I could just forward that to you all right after I leave here with her permission. But she's been handing that list out to all the teachers groups all over the state. Senator Sykes let me know just 2 days ago that he's getting 40 to 50 calls a day on this issue because people are so outraged that the legislature hasn't done it. A simple hearing, that's kind of, when you read the rules of the House, everyone is given at least one hearing, which would be me talking like I'm talking now. And so maybe you don't get the next 2 hearings, but people are so outraged wondering if we're even going to have time to go through that process. And I don't mind telling you that there's been some talk about a class action lawsuit, which is what other states have done in similar situations. Because if you think about it, it's not only the children, it's their parents, their grandparents, these companies that are taking pictures of our kids, taking their money. I met with a bunch of these graduates who've already paid for their cap and gown, and or seniors, I should say, not graduates. They've paid for their cap and gown, they've paid all that money to retake these tests, and they're not on track to graduate. Makes you wonder. That's fraud.
I feel personally, and I'm going to imagine, I'm going to speak on behalf of most of my colleagues, if not all, that we want to know that we've done everything that we can do. So if you give us that list, I want to be able to say, not only did we pass this, but I also did this, this, and this. So I thank you so much, and I'm going to open it up. Councilwoman Sims.
Thank you.
Just want to say thank you to my colleagues who appear very receptive to this resolution, and thank you, Representative Galansky. Even when Ms. Galansky first brought this to our attention, I think as a former school board member, that kind of kicked in for us, and I said, Tavia, would you like us to do a resolution? And she was like, absolutely. I have spoken with Patrick Bravo, and both myself and Mr. York have been working with the school board to do a resolution that I believe they'll be passing this evening. I think it's just unfortunate these standards actually kicked in when our kids were still in the 9th grade, and so there's been really ample time to really deal with this, even up into and through 2018, and to be here halfway through the school year and nothing being done, parents anxious, hundreds of students, even in our own district, not being able potentially to graduate is an egregious thing at best. So I'm very appreciative. I'm hopeful that I know that our names are on the resolution, but I'm hopeful that tonight we'll be able to pass that as council and mayor and council as a whole. Again, thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate your advocacy, and whatever we can do to advance even further, I want to be able to do that. So thank you.
Very grateful to all of you. Thank you.
Any other council members? Councilman Fusco just made a motion for suspension of the rules. Councilwoman Amobian seconded. We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none, this will be passed out of committee with suspension of the rules. And I have to go back because we did have a piece that was on time, and I
Okay.
would like time again on that, on our old piece.
All right.
Is there anything else to come before this committee? Hearing and seeing none, we are adjourned.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you. They pulled the wire. Okay, what's we got next here? Budget and finance, 3 o'clock. Yeah, might as well just sit here. Might as well just sit here.
One more. Who's the co-chair here? Oh, okay.
And I usually schedule one, and then I'm learning. And it's from a fire hydrant. No, it's not. Did you think I was being honest? It's from Broken Arrow. It's a dog wagging the tail. Bent. I have these, this is like, oh, this says, this is my activity level. I haven't moved enough today. No exercise, 2 minutes of exercise, and I've stood. I've done the best at standing. So, yeah, I've done the best at standing. That's my heart. My heart's doing okay. My heart is always. So anyhow.
Retrain plus go.
Exactly what you have to do.
Thought too, I thought it was sick. And so, that was just. Okie dokie, thank you. So, she didn't chat about it. He said, let's see what else he said.
Whenever you're ready.
I'll have to come back. Okay, I would like to call the Economic Development. No, I am not calling them. No, I'm going to call, instead, I'm going to call Budget and Finance Committee to order. And who we have here today is everyone is present except for Councilman Freeman. So I am going to run this. Shoo, didn't do so well at the beginning, but watch me, get back in step here. I would like a motion on the minutes from our previous meeting. I had Councilman Hoke approved, Councilman Milkovich second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Did you abstain, Councilwoman? Okay, all right, good, thank you. Okay, so it passes, the approval of the minutes pass. Okay, we have one oh, let me look at the old. I don't think we have anything on old. We do. We have one piece on our old agenda, and I'm going to ask for, is that filed?
No, we would like it passed out tonight if
Okay.
possible.
Okay, so let us bring that piece forward right now then. Okay, so on our old agenda, we have an ordinance amending the ordinance number 82, 2018, passed March 19th, 2018, which established the annual appropriation for the current expenses, other expenditures in the capital outlays of the city of Akron for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2018, and declared an emergency. And if you recall, and now it's all coming back to me, that we got this, and Councilman Freeman asked us to look at it, and if we had any questions, to make sure that we directed them to Mr. Fricker. So did anyone at all contact you, Mr. Fricker?
Not over the past week, no.
Okay, already. So is there any questions or comments from the committee? Hearing and seeing none, are there any questions or comments from the other members of council in the chambers? Hearing and seeing none, what is your pleasure?
We would like suspension of the rules.
Okay. Okay, Councilwoman moved to have the rules suspended. And there's a second. So Councilman Hoke second the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none. That piece is done with. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm glad I remembered what committee we were in and that we had something there. Budget and Finance, the new piece to come before us is an ordinance authorizing the issuance of a bond of the city in a principal amount not to exceed $6 million for sale of the Water Pollution Control Loan Fund and State of Ohio to finance the cost of improvements to the city's wastewater system, pledging certain revenues from the city's wastewater system on a subordinate basis to secure the payment of the principal of and interest on the bond, and authorizing the execution and delivery of the bond, the trust agreement, and other documents, and the taking of other actions related to the issuance and sale of the bond, and declaring an emergency. Okay, and who will speak on that, Mr. Fricker?
It will be me. Thank you, Madam Chair. So this piece is similar to others that we've brought in the past couple of months. This is another 45-year bond that we're issuing to fund one of our CSO projects. This is for the Sevilla Trunk Sewer Reconstruction Project.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the members of the committee? Councilwoman Amobian would like to make a comment.
I know that you've been coming in here with these new arrangements. Is this one that we're going to spread out over some enormous amount of years to get a better rate?
This is also a 45-year loan, similar to the recent ones that we, and I say loan, I misspoke, bond. Yeah, so it's a 45-year bond, similar to the ones that we've been getting recently.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on the committee that has a question or a concern? Any members of council in the chambers that have a question or concern? Seeing and hearing none, what is your pleasure?
Consent agenda.
Okay. Do I have a motion for the consent agenda? I have a motion by Hope and a second by Councilman Milkovich. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none, this will be placed on the consent agenda. Is there anything else to come before the committee? Seeing none, we are adjourned. You are so welcome. We are done. Yep.
All right, all right, all right.